What's up? Welcome to the Existential Stoic Podcast. If you've ever listened to us, you know our views on school and education.
It stinks.
It's mostly garbage. But today we're actually going to switch things around a little bit because we're going to talk about why maybe you should go to school, why maybe you should get involved with learning, and so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Did you like my critic impersonation?
I did, yes. Yeah. Dude, not enough people know that show because it was awesome.
Yeah, it definitely was. Good old Jay Sherman.
I don't know how well it would have lasted though, because it was so specific to contemporary, to stuff that movies and shows going on at the time, and who knows. I'll have to watch it again.
I've watched it again, and also Dr. Katz, and I can say Dr. about Katz both of those shows, it stinks.
Yeah. I like Dr. Katz though. It was a good show. Yeah.
So today we're talking about why you should go back to school. Now, why on earth are we doing this?
I don't know. Well, it's funny. I should say this. I have a weird relationship with school because I love learning. I do. I do teach. There's that. I do enjoy teaching. The things I hate about it, it's not the idea of it or the goal of it. I do like those things, and I do like learning a lot. And part of me does love school. The frustration with it is a lot of the practical things, like the cost, the way it's forced on people at a young age, the inability to choose on your own, the overwhelmingness of it for people when they're 17 and whatever. And I think there's a lot of things that are bad, but there's also a lot of good. So I think we should maybe talk about that, because there's also other options this day and age. Lots of other options.
Yeah, I like that quote that says you should never let your schooling interfere with your education.
Yes,
I think a lot of people get those confused. They hate school, and granted, I'm right there with you. But then they think that getting educated is just not for them because they don't belong at a school. And that's wrong. Because
No, you're right though. Because I think I strongly believe that your whole life should be an education. That's what wisdom is. Wisdom is continually learning throughout life and never thinking you know everything, and always finding new things to learn. Because the world is really amazing, and there's so many things to discover. So you should do that. The problem with school too is I think people get put off because you just started academia not that long ago, and everybody has to prove how smart they are, and they have to always be the one who knows the most, and it's who cares? That's not helpful in the moment, right? We want to learn and grow. That's the point of being here. So it should be about how my success is rated against myself. I think that's why lifelong education is so important. But we're lucky though, because I do want to say I remember when we first went to college, dude, I still had to go to the library for crap a lot. And it is way easier to learn now, man. Online, granted, there's a lot of terrible sources, but online does make things also easier.
Yeah, for searching for information, you can look anything up and you can just cite an article and it's done. You don't have to do anything hard. You don't have to read books. You literally don't, because you could just search what you're asking, find an article, find that little piece where it says what you're looking for, and then cite that, and you're done, which is great. I do love that.
I do like that too.
I think another reason we're doing this episode, why you should go back to school, is because Danny and I have actually both gone back to school, but not a typical normal school. No, this is a practical school, applied, which is the complete opposite, of what typical schools are. It's funny. I was telling Danny how back in the day when Ben Franklin invented University of Pennsylvania, he thought that it should be a school of applied sciences. So actual practical stuff that you could use in life. And everybody else was no. We're going to do theoretical. And now the whole entire education system is all theoretical. And it's just totally not practical. You can't use it once you get out of school.
Because you have a bunch of people that love reading and thinking about stuff, but don't like doing it. That's really what it is. Yeah, no, it is. It's a mess, dude. And I think that's one of the worst parts, is that oftentimes students, you don't get to see how this is useful in the world. And so it seems really like empty knowledge or pointless knowledge. Because it takes, unless you're really engaged in learning on your own, it's hard to see where the connections are. And I think, if we gave that more to people, they would probably enjoy it more and find the value in it more. But yeah, we're doing something that's completely opposite. It's
It's
practical. It's
it's
just
and
yeah.
yeah, so we're doing one that's completely practical, and then on my own, I'm doing completely theoretical. And it's
Boom.
funny because like this one professor that I have, she's all about APA styling and citations and everything. And I'm like, I've worked in the real world for 18 years.
You worked in
Never
NASA.
once, yeah, never
They love
once
you.
did I have to use APA styling. Never once did I have to cite a source. Never. And it's just like, this is the most important stuff to her. And she will literally fail you if you don't cite your sources. And so it's just like, it's absurd.
If we want to get technical for our listeners, APA is the one where you footnote with numbers, right? So you number each source and then you put the number for the source, right?
I have no freaking idea.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty
I'm
sure that's
still
what
I'm
it
still learning because like
is. Okay.
they tell you you have to use APA, but they don't tell you where it is. And there's a million different sources for APA, and all of them have it done
Yeah.
differently. So it's like,
Yeah.
good luck.
Well, you know what's
Good luck.
funny, dude? That's what I also love about that cracks me up about that when people are hellbent on citations. They have totally forgotten because they've gotten used to doing it one way that there is still interpretation in how you do citations. So they still vary anyway within a format. So it's like mad confusing.
Dude, and here's another crazy thing. So I haven't used Microsoft Word in forever because I've just used like other free word
I like
processing.
LibreOffice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so like it's a requirement to use Microsoft Word. Whatever.
Why?
Turns out I don't know, because they're a teacher and they can make requirements. But turns out you can actually double space, like after a period, having two spaces is now wrong. Like the whole time we were brought up, it was always you need two spaces after a period. And now that's wrong. It blew my mind.
It weird?
For like, how many years has it been you needed two spaces after a period? Now it's wrong. That's crazy.
Shit, grammar changes. It's confusing. It is. I know.
Yeah.
I remember it's a weird thing that happens too, that we change how our writing style, huh?
Are we doing an episode on why you shouldn't go to school?
I don't know what we're doing. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, no, we're just talking about it. It doesn't matter. It's besides the point. Well, no, I think this is a good contrast though, because we're setting up the contrast between,
traditional school.
Yeah. And what we're doing now.
Applied practical. Yeah. So I know you're all chomping at the bit. How are we doing something practical?
Yeah. What are we doing?
We're doing a full stack web developer boot camp.
Which is awesome. And it's super fun. Yeah.
Dude, crazy awesome and very practical. And it's something that like you learn the skills that you need to do the job when you're done it.
Well, and what? Yeah. Oh no, which is like amazing, right? Because regular school, it's like, here's a bunch of information, but you have none of the tools to actually apply it. Figure that out on your own. This is the opposite approach. It's here's how you apply a bunch of stuff. It gives you the foundation to then research and do more on your own, because now you know how to apply it. So all you need to do is really figure out the other things that you want. Because there's it's like anything. There's endless information. And I think this is where we all struggle with learning, whether you're approaching learning on your own, at university, or in a practical boot campus. There's so much information. It's not always clear where to start or how to do it and the right way. And there's different approaches. And I think, I think anyway, but I think this should be more on why learning's good in general.
Well, okay. So I wanted to talk on that topic. And
okay.
So the episode, why you should go back to school or go back to learning, because here's the thing, like I know for myself, like I have always really, really wanted to be like a very good programmer or ethical hacker. Okay.
Me too.
But there's always been this voice in my head that's like, you're not good enough. Because it says like those people have something that you don't have. And so like, but the thing is, I just say, well, I'm just going to do it anyways. And I'm just going to go in that direction and take courses in that direction. And then I'm just going to keep on doing that. And you can keep telling me that I'm not good enough or whatever, but I'm just going to do it anyways. And I think that's why everyone should consider going back to school or learning something that they're driven to learn. They have a desire to learn or to be, because I think a lot of people will have that same voice that says, oh, you can't do that. You're not smart enough. You're too old. You're too young. You're from the wrong background. Whatever these voices are that try and stop you, if you just do it anyways and be like, Well, we'll see. I'm going to do it. We'll see. We'll see if you're right.
Yeah.
You know, but let's just do it.
You know, it's funny. Whenever I get stuck, I always have a voice that says, don't worry. If other people can do it, you can do it. And I think it's a good voice. And I think, I was thinking about the other day because like it's a positive attribute that I have, one of the few with learning. And I think I remember when I was an undergrad, I had a professor because I was struggling with something, and he was like, and I was like, it's so easy for you. And he's like, he looked at me and he's like, I'm almost 70 years old. He's like, I've been studying this for like 50 years. He's like, of course it's easy for me. He's like, if it wasn't, that would be ridiculous. He's like, and I was like, oh, that's a good point. Like, like I expected, because you have that expectation that like once you start something, you should be right there, like it should be simple and easy to grasp. And I think that really helps because I was like, oh, I just need more time. That's the problem. I just haven't given it enough time, but I'm in the right direction. I think that's what we need to remind ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really great one, that if anybody else can do it, you can do it too. And also, I like the idea that on a long enough time frame, you can learn anything.
Yeah, you can. And that's
because cool. Like most of us get trapped when we're younger, and we have these courses that are a certain duration. We have to learn all this material before the course is over. But let's say that you had final exams coming up in a week, okay? And so you put off studying until the last 2 days, which most people will do, okay? So you cram those last 2 days, and then it turns out your exam gets pushed back another week. If you had another full week of studying and you already knew what you learned in those 2 days and you could study over the next week, don't you think you would learn a lot more? And it's kind of the same way with everything else in life, where like given a long enough time frame, you can learn anything. And most of us, we underestimate what we can do in a good amount of time, like in a decade.
Yeah,
totally underestimate it.
We know it's interesting. It's what I like about I have to say, I do like about the practical approach to learning that we're doing now is that the information is intentionally set up to build on itself. So each progression you're building from what you knew before. And so you're naturally accumulating more information and it's compounding effects, right? And I think what a lot of people miss in university is because courses are not necessarily set up that way. They're set up on a semester-based time frame where they start and end. The individual student doesn't realize that the learning continues after, and it should continue afterwards because those connections need to be made. And that's where you really start to learn. Like you don't learn much in one course. You learn when you start realizing the connections between all the information you have. And I think that's why, like, I think, like, I don't know, I just am a big fan of lifelong learning because I think, like, I don't know, I always feel like when I'm not learning something new, I'm not as happy as I can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. Like, I need to keep busy. I found that about myself. Otherwise, what was it? I just heard something the other day that, like, people who are depressed or melancholy are just people who have too much time to consider if they're happy.
Yeah, yes, that's a good one.
I was just like,
that's pretty true.
That is spot on. And like, I'm the same way because I have a very active mind. And so if it's not kept busy, then I could just dwell on stuff and be like, oh, am I happy? And who cares? Yeah. But instead, keeping busy and always learning is very, very helpful.
It's funny too, when you're always learning too, I find when I do have downtime or I am bored, it becomes more productive rather than being like, am I happy? Meh. Because like, no, I have that same lifelong experience where like I'm miserable, dude, if I'm not doing something new. And like, and I think that's, for people trying to figure out what they want to learn or the direction to go, like, I think like, like you don't have to necessarily sign up for something. Learning on your own is a great way to start. And like just picking up a hobby, something fun that interests you, that you would force you to learn more about something. And just doing that, even if it could just be, I like reading scientific articles at night, or I like playing with this, whatever the thing it is, and just forcing you to learn something new. It could be like, programming, whatever, any kind of thing you like.
Yeah. What looks cool? What looks cool? That's basically it. You just need to figure what looks cool and just start filling your time up with that.
Or like another, I mean, like, oh, go ahead.
But here's how you should not go to school. You should not go to one of these 4-year universities and get some outrageously expensive degree, especially a name brand degree. That's the biggest waste you'll ever find in your life. And I heard it best from Dave Ramsey on his new Financial Peace University. because there's over $1 trillion in student loan debt, and it has like a huge default rate, like
Two.
over a third.
It's at two now.
Oh,
Two
it's 2
trillion.
trillion. Okay.
Yeah.
So huge
It's
default
been
rate.
over a
Like,
trillion for like a while, dude.
yeah, like over a third of the people aren't even paying on those loans. And the government doesn't care because it's a very big source of income for them. Aside from taxes, it's like one of their biggest sources of income.
Well, most
But
people will pay double or triple what they originally took out too by the time they're done. So think about
yeah,
that. That's insane.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the crazy thing is that Dave Ramsey, he says, it's not a problem with the education or with the students so much. It's a parenting problem because parents have these 18-year-old children and the parents know nothing about personal finance. They know nothing about saying no to their children. And so they allow their children, who's technically an adult, 18 years old, but at least intellectually is completely a minor and knows nothing about the world or finance or anything. They're letting their children sign up for a life of slavery. And they're just like, this is the best thing you'll ever do for your life. Yeah, sure. $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year. It's Princeton. Go for it. Of course. And it's like the biggest mistake they'll ever make.
Well, the worst part, that's the other thing that always killed me too, is I really wish and we suffered from the same thing, right? Which is like, it wasn't just our parents, our whole community, our schools, everything told us that was the only thing you could do. That if you didn't do it, you somehow failed, or you weren't as worthy or worthwhile or whatever, or as valuable as other people. Even community college was looked down upon at the time.
Dude, I remember
and in hindsight, that. I would have. I wish I just did that because it would have been. I would have learned just as much because I'm an active learner myself. I don't necessarily if you give me a direction, I'll go that way. It's easy. I don't need that much else. So, yeah, and it's a shame. And I really wish we gave kids more time after high school to just kind of just figure it out because who the hell knows? I've changed my mind on really what I want to do so many times. And I think that's what's fun. You can. But if I had taken a more direct approach earlier and got experience, and I might have actually gotten more benefit from that first run. Not that I didn't enjoy school, but the debt accrued with it and the practicality of it. Because the fact is you still have to live your life. So it's great to go learn something that you want to learn. And it's great to just get information for information's sake. I'm all for that, but it costs a lot of money. And so at the end of the day, you're still paying for it. You're still stuck with that debt.
Yeah, I think what you said there is really important. Don't go to education that you can't afford. That's simple as that. If you can't afford it, wait. It's going to be there, and it's only getting, the real good education is only getting cheaper.
Yeah.
The boot camp that we're doing, super cheap. You can find the best courses on Udemy or on LinkedIn Learning, super cheap. And these are well better than any course you could get at a university.
That is actually a great point. That if you want to get started learning something, go take free courses on Udemy, Coursera, or whatever those places are, just because you can enroll for them for free just to try things out and do that and see what you like and then go from there. Get take a shotgun approach if you have to. Take a bunch of different stuff, just kind of see what you can figure out and then go from there. And it's great. Yeah.
Or apply for internships. Work a full-time job and do an internship in whatever you want to do. Because I guarantee whatever you're going to university for, you're not going to do in life. Nobody ever does. There's barely anybody. I'm not a physicist. Well, you're a philosopher, so I guess there's.
Yeah, but I would have been no matter what I did anyway. Technically, you're still a physicist. That's a weird thing to say. I do teach, but it's come on. What are you going to do with that? I want to change careers, so what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny too because I think I don't know. The whole system's very odd. It's I don't know what the best way to be would be, but I think our point is that you should keep learning your whole life because I think people forget that the more you learn, the more opportunities you create for yourself. It's a fact. The more skills you develop, the more things you learn, the more you just make your life better by making the things you can do. You expand those options, and I think that's just something that should not be overlooked.
And also, the really valuable thing isn't what you learn; it's actually learning how to learn.
Oh God, yeah.
Because everything's changing so fast nowadays that even if you learn the most modern technology nowadays, in 5 years, it'll be outdated. And so you'll just have to learn something else and then something else and something else. But if you can learn how to learn very effectively and quickly and even teach other people, then you can really have a very valuable skill because you can not only learn the new technology, then you can sell it to other people as well.
Yeah. You know, it was Aristotle that said that you don't know. I think he said you don't know something until you can teach it to someone else. But I think it's a good point. But you're right too. You know, I think it's that is an important part, which is once you learn how to learn, it's like it becomes so. I think we're both lucky in that sense. We learned that early on. We knew how to do it very quickly, and I think it makes it so much easier because I look at other students, both in the class that we're doing now in our course, and the students that I teach, and you see the ones that don't know how to learn on their own, and they just struggle, and they haven't
Mm-hmm.
figured it out yet. And once you do, it's so much. I mean, it becomes the whole process becomes so much more valuable because you get so much more out of it instead of just sitting there, like hoping that something sinks in. You're actively doing it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference. It's the active engagement versus the passive learning. We teach people to be passive learners, to sit there and just absorb information and regurgitate facts rather than actually look things up, figure it out on your own, solve problems. And that's really what matters long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also, okay, so here's a little woo-woo thing to it, but I
All right.
also think that a lot of people focus like trying to memorize every little thing. And like
Yeah.
I always I have this firm belief that like I'll learn whatever I'm supposed to learn. So like I
Yeah.
just go through it and then do what I need to do with it. And then if I need to look back, I go through it again. But like I see people who take copious notes and who try and memorize every single detail. And it's just like that. I mean, if you just look at the number of web pages and on each web page there's more links, it's just like this never ending volume of
Yeah.
information. You can't learn it all. So like
No.
just having the belief that you'll learn whatever you need to know and anything else you can just look back at again.
It's funny. It's like I've heard doctors, I've heard programmers say it. I've heard every industry say it. Like they make you memorize the stuff that you just look up when you have a job, because that's the truth of the matter. You don't expect your doctor to know the exact dosage for every medication. You don't expect,
Mhm.
a programmer that works at a company, if they're going to use a different language, they might need to go refresh themselves on that language. But it doesn't mean they can't do it. If they're a skilled professional, they know how to do it. That's what they're hired for, is they know how to solve those problems and learn.
And then the actual things that you do memorize are things that you've memorized because you do them so often. Like I
Yeah,
remember that when
yeah,
I was a doctor, was that I could remember doses for medications for like 100 different medications because they were the 100
yeah,
most common medications I would use, and I would prescribe them all the time. And so
yeah,
I, instead of going to look it up every time, it just ended up sticking in my brain. I take the weight of the patient, and then I'd be like, okay, there we go.
yeah. And it's funny. I think we forget that when we start out on a new course, and I think that we can give some tips for learning here. When you start out on a new course, I think most of us have the misconception that we need to grasp the entirety of the sphere of knowledge, which one is impossible because it's all connected. So you'll never get there. So don't worry about that. That's stupid. Focus on grasping as much as you can and looking for connections. I think that's the most important thing, is how ideas connect to each other, both internally with whatever you're studying and beyond, because that's where you really start to get those interesting ideas. You learn to solve problems. And I also think, just as a side note, like, when you're reading on your own and studying on your own, like you said, don't take copious notes. I don't think that really helps. I always use an approach where, like, if I see something that really is interesting, I'll jot it down just because it helps me remember it. And it's usually something important. Other than that, I don't really worry about it too much. It just,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
those are some great tips. I also think that doing it every day is really important because there are a ton of studies that show that cramming is not an effective way to remember
no,
anything, but repetition is very effective. So you just do it over and over and over again. So every day, just a little bit, every day, just a little bit. And so, like, if you just go back to it every single day and do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, it compounds on itself. And eventually you get much more than if you would try to cram and then cram and then cram.
if you want to be a just person, you got to do just actions. If you want to be a computer programmer, you got to program. If you want to be a physicist, you got to do physics, right? That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're
Yeah.
right, though. If you do it every day, you really do see also that you see the exponential growth, because things just
Mm-hmm.
like, and not letting yourself, I mean, this is the hardest one too, I think. Just don't get overwhelmed. When you feel like you're stuck, just keep doing
Mm-hmm.
it every day, because you always
Yeah.
hit plateaus, and the next moment is always great. I always tell myself that too. When I get stuck, I'm like, it's going to be awesome when I figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is.
Absolutely. Another thing that I learned was find who the best students are and then ask if you can study with them. And here's a little caveat that I got from doing that is that all the time, the best students were the ones who deserved it. They were the
Yeah.
ones who were studying the most. They were the ones who were studying every day. They were the ones who in their spare time were looking up things. So it's like the people who do really well, it's not magic and it's not
Yeah.
some mystery. It's like they actually put in the work.
You know, it's funny. Like this used to work well for me, but I don't know if it does. Like people used to get mad at me because they thought I did well without doing stuff. But what they didn't realize is I was always doing work, not necessarily my coursework, but in the area. So I might be reading different philosophy books, or I might be reading different biology articles, just things that interest me. And I found that focusing on my interest helped me retain information better. So it was an effective way for me to study. And I think learning those things about yourself is crucial because that can help you really progress faster as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's
It's
all my tips for learning. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
do
Keep
it.
doing it. Don't stop.
Mhm.
And do it your whole
Yeah.
life because it makes life better. I think it does.
And also fail at it. Like
Yeah.
there's so
You
many
have to.
people there are so many people who are so terrified of failing. And it's like, so what? You fail. Guess what? You go back and do it again. I failed high school. Like I literally failed high school. I couldn't walk at graduation. And I had to do summer school in order to graduate. And all the things that I've done afterwards, people will be like, you're such a success. And it's like, I failed high school. Like
Lots of people
you just
did.
have to fail. Yeah. You have to fail so you can get over the fear of failure and just like be able to move on and keep going.
Dude,
Because then
that
you
is
realize
the-
failure is just a stepping stone. And when you go back and do it again, you already know the stuff you knew before. Now you're just learning on top of that.
You know, it's one of the worst things I see all the time in undergraduate school is like kids so stressed out about getting the A on everything. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, and first of all, you're expecting yourself to be perfect on everything every time. No one's going to ask you what your GPA was. A. B. Getting a lower grade is okay because it means you can work on something and get better at it. Like, but they're so freaked out about it. It's so funny. Like panic attacks, literally fucking panic attacks over it. It's insane.
That's hilarious.
It's sad.
When I signed up for this master's, the first question that popped into my mind was, what's the lowest grade I can get and still get the degree? but I was like, I shouldn't ask that because that would just set a bad precedent.
In a master's program, it's a B. A C is considered failure. Yeah, just so you know. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right.
They actually
better
like
step
C.
it up.
Well, I mean, look, really though, there is kind of a rule. I mean, if you got in, you're probably not going to fail out.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of true. I mean, if you made it into a master's program, you're probably going to be fine. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Right, I think if you don't stress about it, you'll do better anyway. Stressing about your grades is not helpful.
Yeah. I know.
So
literally, like nobody once you get the degree, nobody ever asks what grades you got. Except for schools, for admissions to schools. That's the only other time they ask for your grades when you're trying to get back into school. They're like, well, what'd you do before?
Dude, like I've done well in our boot camp, but every time I see like a quiz or something, it's like you need a 6. I'm like, all right, this is what I'm aiming for because it doesn't matter otherwise. Yeah. All I need is that thing to say that I passed. Yeah, it's funny. De-stress. Have fun with it. I think that's the other thing. I think people don't have fun with it, and you should. It's fun. Learning's awesome.
Yeah, you got one chance around this merry-go-round. You might as well enjoy it, do the best you can, and not stress about messing up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why would you? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we all go to the same
anything
place.
else you wanted to say about why people should or shouldn't go back to school? I think that's good too.
I think they should learn.
Do the best you can. Tell everybody to stay away from universities. It's predatory. It really is predatory.
It is predatory.
It's like they literally are raping children. Like, let's just get vulgar. They're raping children.
They're making indentured servants. Yeah. It's like
they're raping children and turning them into slaves. That's what universities are doing. So I think that the word needs to get out there that should stop because raping people isn't good, especially children.
And the worst part
turning people into slaves isn't good.
Yeah. And I think the worst part is like they can be very valuable when you know what you want to do and when there's a practical reason to go. Like, like a lot of people will get a job and then they can get a master's through their work or something. And that makes sense because it's like, there's the connection. It's practical. It's going to help you proceed in your career and doing what you're doing. Like once you know what you're doing, I think that you can do it. But yeah, it's terrible with what we do now.
But also you can bargain shop for universities. You can bargain shop. Like the master's that I'm getting now costs less than half of a semester of my undergrad degree. A whole entire year and a half master's program costs less than half of a semester at undergrad.
That's insane. Yeah.
So like bargain shop, and nobody is an accredited university. Nobody's going to care afterwards. You'd be like, oh, you got the degree. Awesome. Good job.
Yeah, you having what you need. That's all you need. We get too caught up in all the other stuff, in all the image, it's a mess. So there you have it. Why you should or shouldn't learn or something. And tips for learning. Also good. Listen to us wherever you get the podcast. Check us out on YouTube. We'll be back later this week with another quick fix. Until then, though, later, Randy.
Later, Danny.